found it.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, but before I couldn't see you because of the light behind you.
You're not streaming live, DJ. It says that you're streaming live on Facebook.
Some of my friends.
Okay.
I voted for between Casey.
Case I was thirsty. Kathy.
So is that the new wife?
No.
Yes. So these are all the winery people.
So it looks like we got.
Could be. Oh, there's a lot.
Marion, I love your peonies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's amazing. Everywhere the peonies and the smell in the spring is just amazing. All the flowers here is like every spring. I just can't believe this beauty.
And what did you write about in the Chicago Tribune?
Pardon?
What did you write about in the Chicago Tribune?
I didn't, I just posted an article from the Chicago Tribune. I didn't write anything, not for the Chicago Tribune, certainly.
See, you give her credit.
Well, that's.
This is the new one.
So sounded like she wrote
See that one?
Oh, Marian tiene
Yeah.
peones too.
I was complimenting Marianne's peonies.
I thought that they were talking about mine,
I
but
love
now I realize
Yeah,
Marian has to. So,
Kind of a contest.
yeah.
It came from my garden, so I do.
Hey, Lucia. Hey, Genevieve.
So Sylvia and all of the
Hi.
Casa Carmen people, congratulations on the Telemundo. Thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It
That
was
was good.
very nice.
Thanks.
The video until.
Thank you for that. I think we're gonna have to ask him next time to do some translation.
It was fairly understandable.
Good.
Hi, Anna Sony. How are you?
What are you looking for?
Where are you, Ann?
Rush. For the, yes.
Hello, Bill. Macintosh.
Amazon.
Not too much.
Hey, Daddy.
Hello, my love.
I know, I saw it.
Daddy's a rock star.
In the corner.
All right.
He thinks he is, that's for sure.
Mhm. Someone behind her or something.
So they send the food. It's in the
Ahora,
box.
¿por qué estás haciendo esto? Yo puedo sostener.
Is that garlic or mozzarella? I think it's garlic. I'm over here.
Hey, a glass of wine.
Por eso hablaba yo. Gracias, es que teníamos un plato más.
Photos here.
Life in the Marianne.
Yes. Are you,
Life, Marianne.
you like done with this?
Hi,
David?
Nick. Nice to see you.
Hey, life, Marianne.
Hi.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, everyone.
Steven,
I
Genevieve.
miss you a lot.
Welcome, everybody. So happy to have everybody here. Thanks for joining us. We're about to start, so we're gonna mute you. I am sorry, but remember to write questions on the chat, and then we'll have at the end. Actually, what we're gonna do is we're going to just kind of leave it running until about 7. So for the last like 20 minutes, and if everybody wants to just hang out and drink wine, we can do that too.
Me too.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but you gotta do it.
Where he gets his wine.
We can hear you now.
Can you show us how to hang around and drink wine, Enrique?
Sorry, that's why we should mute.
You know, I do have to do a little bit of theatricals. And that's why we have to do the proper intro, just because, you know, we like theatricals.
Perfecto. Le pongo esto. A este sí ya le pongo esto. Sí, pone. ¿Mm? Vale, ahora sí.
Las palabras fueron avispas, las calles como cuando te espero llegar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Casa Carmen Live, where we bring our bodega into your home. Today's our second episode. It is classic and modern, and we're going to be drinking our 2018 Duende, and we're going to be eating some classics like jamón serrano, the roasted almonds with espelette pepper, manchego cheese, and gordal olives.
Indeed, indeed. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to have you here, as always. Hope we can be seen properly and heard properly. And before we start, just a couple of housekeeping things as usual, and that is, you know, you can write all of your comments on the comment section, questions and stuff. We'll try to get to everybody, but please, you know, do let us know if there's anything at all that you're interested in that you want us to talk a little bit more about. We're really happy to do it. Also, tell us what you think about the wine. You know, if it's good, tell us. If it's terrible, tell us too. And then finally, our next episode will be swimming upriver. So remember, if you haven't bought the kit for that yet, or the wine for the tasting, remember to do it as soon as you can, so that you can join us for that episode as well. So let's go ahead and get started here.
Well, I hope you guys opened the bottle a little bit before. If not, now is the time.
Yeah, this is definitely a wine that if you can, it's great to have it open, you know, half an hour before, just to kind of open it up and let it breathe a bit. What happens to the wine with oxygen is basically when you open a bottle in advance, you are accelerating the aging process, hyper accelerating the aging process because of the exposure to oxygen. So the wine is becoming oxidized very quickly. So that's why after you open a bottle, it's great for the, you know, after an hour, it's phenomenal, depending on the wine, obviously. And then after a couple of days, it begins declining. But anyways, well, salud.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, everybody.
To everyone. It's tasting great.
What a beauty.
Yeah, I hope you guys like it as much as I do, but.
Okay. So classic and modern. We named this episode Classic and Modern. First, the classic is because the food that we're having here today is very, very classic. This is what's on the table of every single Spanish table, you know? And so we haven't done anything too crazy, just kind of some staples. And then the wine, in some ways, captures the very classic and modern spirit of what we try to do. And we'll get into that in a second. But first, why don't you, Feli, tell us what
all right, so
we're doing with the food.
First, we're gonna start with the jamón. Jamón is a basic everywhere. A lot of people try to compare it a little bit to prosciutto. If you ask the Spanish, that's gonna be a mistake. It's terrible. So you shouldn't do that. No,
They exist in a different category.
so basically the same. The main difference between both of them, it's well, jamón is exclusively made from a specific breed of pigs, which is the white pig. Then you have higher end jamons. It's the Iberian pig. It's that's when you go to the Pata Negra.
That's made from a different breed of pig called the Iberico.
Yeah.
And then you have your Iberico de Bellotas, which is Iberico pig. It's a very kind of slender black pig. And the Iberico de Bellota, they are fed only acorns throughout their life. And that's, you know, the difference between jamón serrano and Iberico de Bellota is quite big in price. In price, it's about 10 times. Mm-hmm. And it's in flavor, it's about 20. So it's worth every single penny.
Yeah, and then you're gonna see the main thing here. It's gonna be kind of like the way the grease is threaded between the meat. That's where you see the biggest difference between a traditional cured hams everywhere else and then jamón. And to cut a jamón, these two things. One's thin, like long knife, and a small one. You're gonna need these to carve kind of around the grease and play around a little bit, kind of like this.
One thing is, I know, for example, in the last episode we spoke about the tinned fish and how that fish is preserved and the method of preservation of canning things. Mm-hmm. Well, jamón is a much older method of preserving anything, which is basically salazón, which is to salt things, right? So it's just basically a leg of pig in a box of salt in a cold, dark room for a very long time, for 18 months.
Yeah. So particularly this ham is 18 months. Another thing that they do that it's very intense with ham, like the rules, the Spanish, to make sure it's jamón serrano. It has to lose 34% or more of its weight during the process of drying it and curing it.
So like some of us in quarantine.
The opposite. You're gaining the 34%, you know. All right. So basically, to cut the jamón, you always want to have it kind of facing towards you, and you're gonna always slowly move your hand like that, as thin as possible. Pieces like this.
Yeah, give me one really good one.
One really good one? Okay, fine.
There is a special way that everybody should try to do jamón. So first, the slices of jamón should be very thin so that you can see through them almost. And, you know, and here goes the demonstration. So first you have to smell the jamón, and the smell has to always be just slightly rancid. Yeah. If it's too rancid, it's no good, but it has to be just slightly rancid.
It has to touch your face.
It has to touch your nose when you smell it. And then you fold it into your mouth, make sure it fills your whole tongue.
Exactly.
What a beauty. Yeah.
And again, the nose is a very important part of the taste, so that's why you put it up. You smell it.
Right. And so, with this kind of thing, this particular type of wine goes great with this. So in Spain, if you be eating this type of jamón, you'd be, you know, drinking some kind of Rioja or Ribera del Duero or you know, who knows, Prioritat, whatever it is. But all Spanish red wines tend to be pretty powerful wines. Generally more bigger character than, say, for those of you who know our tinto, bigger than that and much closer to what this one is, to what the Duende is.
Then, great, another classic, Manchego. Manchego is the most traditional Spanish cheese you're gonna find. I mean, if you've been to Spain, you've had Manchego. It's impossible not to. And it's from the region of La Mancha,
which three amazing things from La Mancha: Manchego, Don Quixote, and Andrés Iniesta,
yes,
the famous soccer player from Barcelona.
Exactly. The best three things that have happened in Spain
from La Mancha are all from La Mancha.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very well known for that, and it's kind of like you can compare it kind of to like a pecorino romano or a little bit like a parmesan, so it's very very common, but it's aged cheese. This one is actually 12 months. So you're gonna feel a little bit of the softness, but quite a bit of crystals already within it. So beautiful. And this is very, very important. Wine after. Claro, qué bueno. Okay, so we'll continue with the food in just a little bit. Let me say a couple of things about the wine. So somebody's asking which jamon we're eating. Sorry, Kay, I see that you just asked that. We're eating jamon serrano, aged for 18 months. So we're not eating Iberico de Bellota. If we were eating Iberico de Bellota, we would have had to charge you guys about double for the kit.
Yeah, no more.
Yeah, no more. So the difference, just so that you get a sense of it, is like a whole leg of jamon serrano normally is around 300 euros, 250, 300 euros. A leg of Iberico de Bellota is about 1,200, 1,300 euros. So it's just about a zero on the right. So that's the jamon that we're eating. Which is kind of like, the great thing about jamon is like the jamon serrano is, yeah, it's not Iberico, but it has a lot of the qualities of Iberico, and it's like an entry level into the world of Spanish jamon. So, then the wine. Let me say a couple of things about this wine that are very special. So, first, it is a wine. Our duende is very special to our hearts, and we wanted kind of everybody to be together as much as possible to celebrate the release of this. And the reason is that is encapsulated in the name, really. So the name duende in the Spanish world, particularly in the world of flamenco, it means a kind of a spirit of inspiration, of artistic authenticity. There's if anybody's interested in this stuff, there's a great speech and that Federico Garcia Lorca, the poet from Spain, from Granada, he gave this speech in 1933 in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, and talked about what duende was. It was called The Theory and Practice of el Duende. And the whole idea is that unlike any other type of artistic inspiration, say like the Greek muses that come from the heavenly heights, or nature as an inspiration, as it was for the transcendentalists or for the romantics of the 19th century, duende was very peculiar to Spanish and Gypsy culture because it was an inspiration that came from the earth, from the bottom, that inhabited, came from the soles of your feet up through your body and inhabited your belly. You know, it's something that really kind of takes over the person, and that it's profoundly rooted, that dwells, that is dueling with life constantly. It's a matter of life and death, whether or not you have duende. You know, you're creating so that you can survive as an artist. And the name originated from a dueño de casa, duende casa, which means master of the house or owner of the house. So it's basically a spirit that takes over its dwelling place and directs it towards authenticity. And for us, that is kind of exactly what we are, how we feel like that this wine leads the Casa Carmen house towards the authenticity and kind of disclosure of who we are and the kind of things that we love. And then that it's and it's a wine that expresses the you know, kind of the modern part of our classic and modern, which is that it's a garagiste wine. Yeah, tell them what garagiste really means. So garagiste is a movement that started first in the 1970s with two Belgian brothers actually in Bordeaux. That started a chateau called Chateau Le Pen. And he was in the right bank of Bordeaux, in the section of Saint-Emilion and Pomerol. And basically the whole idea behind this was that, although the movement only became popular in the 90s, but the whole idea here was that France has very restrictive wine laws. And what the first garagistes started doing is making wine in their garage and kind of define some of those traditional laws about winemaking, right? Saying like, yeah, we're not just using this particular grape and
tied to this particular vineyard, but you know what? We're picking from certain different vineyards to express different terroirs together. And so garagiste wines became big in the 90s, and in the 2000s they made it to the US. And now there's like a garagiste wine festival on the West Coast and things like this. And they have sort of become the type of wine that is that focuses on craft, right? On the craft of the winemaking as a way of not just taking things from one vineyard that expresses one terroir, but mixing several terroirs together, right? And so it's a wine that still expresses, say, the hillside where the grapes were grown, but perhaps expresses 2 or 3 different hillsides where it was grown. And that is what we try to do with this wine, you know. And it's classic in the sense that it is a typical Bordeaux blend of only Bordeaux varietals, but it is also very modern in the sense that it is garagiste coming from vineyards of very different parts of the country, from very local, as is the case with the Merlot, to the West Coast, as is the case with the Cabernet Sauvignon. So this wine, if you smell it and you taste it, you'll see that it has some of the bigness and the structure and the tannins that you're used to in the West Coast, but it has also the balance and some of that beautiful structural acidity that the East Coast wines tend to have.
Yeah, it's this hyper focus on winemaking that just has brought a completely different world to our glasses.
Yeah, salud.
So I want you guys to try the olives now. These olives are called Gordal olives. They comes from like the fat ones, basically. That's what they call them. And they're actually very specific to Sevilla and to Andalusia, but mainly to Sevilla. They're called the Gordal Sevillanas. Usually that's how they know them in Spain. And they're known for the particular flavor. They're really, really flavorful. They have a very low oil content. That's why they only use them for eating. They don't use them for olive oil because they have lower oil content, but the flavor is just amazing.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever tried an olive like it.
No.
It's totally different than any other olive.
And basically the way they cure them is just vinegar, water, salt, garlic. So it's a very simple brine just to help the olive kind of come out, bring out the flavors and express what it really is. I don't know if you guys know this, but it's impossible to eat an olive right off the tree. All of them have to be kind of brined or cured in a certain way, because if not, it's just so bitter that you wouldn't be able to swallow it.
When you make olive oil, actually in the ancient, the presses, the old like stone presses, they used to make olive oil with this like big heavy stone that basically just like rolls around a flat circle of stone with a little canal in the middle. So you crush the olives and then all the oil drips to the middle, and then all that liquid would fall into a big container, and then they would wait a couple of days, and the oil and this very bitter liquid that in the south of Spain they call alpechin or jamila, that is a very, very dark like the eyes of an Andalusian woman. This is a very, very dark,
it's a gypsy,
and very bitter liquid too. Yeah. Which some say that it's part of the curse of the southern Spain.
Yeah.
But then you just scoop out the oil, and that's what you get.
Yeah. Then the garlic.
So a couple of things that people were asking. Let me just clarify. Of Duende, we have 100. We made 107 cases total of Duende. Mm-hmm. I saw that somebody asked that. And then the grapes is a blend of Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Petit Verdot, which just does. If you give it a good swirl, you get a lot of that like very black fruit in it, which is really where a lot of the expressions of the Petit Verdot. So that's a lot of
color. Yeah. You can see it. It's a different kind of purple, or like deep purple almost.
And you kind of get like cassis and black plums. That like that darkness to it. That's the Petit Verdot. But then the beautiful thing is that it has Merlot behind it to give it that lightness, that drinkability, and that structure. And that is what's so beautiful about blends. It's the difference between a solo sport and a team sport.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. These was also aged for 15 months in French oak. So you can taste quite a bit of that. It was a mix of new and
Yeah, about
I don't remember
70%
exactly 70%.
used oak and 30% in new oak.
Yeah.
And then we have 50 cases of it. So 2 oak barrels worth of it that are still aging and that we will bottle as a reserve next year.
Yeah. So
stay
stay tuned for that as well.
Just wait about a year.
Yeah, it's just wait about a year. Then
What else we got?
So
what else we got, baby?
here with the olives. I know, when you see a whole clove of garlic like that, people are hesitant to try it.
Not them.
They're not.
No, they're not.
Well, a lot of them have tried it here in the tasting room, but these are amazing. This pickled garlic they're beautiful, and it's actually really good for your heart. So please go ahead and eat them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about the almonds? The almonds are another amazing thing. So when I lived in Granada, I spent some time studying there, and I lived in a terrace that overlooked the Alhambra. It was a beautiful, beautiful place in the neighborhood of El Albaicín. And what we would do there in the afternoons with the Spanish guys that I lived is you would buy an entire sack of almonds and you go up to the roof and you pour yourself some wine and just peel the almonds all afternoon. Just peel them so that you can then do what he did with
exactly. So I roasted some almonds. It's actually a very simple process. Just put them in a pan. This time here, as you guys know, I don't really have any like an actual stove, but I have this. So I do it very lightly, move it really fast. At home, you can do it really easily. Just put it in a pan, no oil. Just put them and just keep on moving until they start browning.
I do it with a little bit of olive oil.
You do it with a little bit of olive oil. I put the
olive oil with olive oil, without olive oil, it doesn't matter.
So once you get them a little bit brown, what I do is I put a little bit of olive oil just so they have something that the salt and the spellet pepper can really stick to.
And that's how they get a little bit of soft, isn't it?
Yeah.
So because they're hot, they're expanded, you then put a little bit of oil.
Exactly. That's why I don't really do it with olive oil when they're in there. It browns a little bit better, and then the oil doesn't really burn. Because almonds have quite a bit of oil. They really do. And even when you do it in the dry pan, you see it at the end and you have kind of black oil already kind of all around the pan because the almonds start releasing the oil with heat. Then I put some just Muldoon salt, which is, as you guys know, it's my favorite salt to use for these kind of things because the flakes are very, very easily, they're full of texture.
Yeah.
So it's all about texture and how it melts in your tongue. And then spellet pepper, which is, it's a very, very common, it's a Basque country, especially on the French side, northern Basque country.
If you don't have a spellet pepper in your pantry,
you should
get some and use it for all
sorts of things. It's kind of like the king of chili peppers, right? It has a little bit of heat. It has a beautiful flavor, and it just goes great with everything. If you go to Basque country, they're gonna add it quite a bit. They have actually very common soups that are based on a spellet pepper, tomatoes, and that's basically it. So
we're gonna try to plant some, see what happens.
Yeah. Well, they grow better in kind of cooler climate.
Yeah, we should do that.
So, it's
so. Spellet. Somebody wants to see the spelling. Is E-S-P-E-L-E-T-T-E. Also,
I write it for you guys here.
Yeah, we'll write it in the chat. Also, I see a question about like where the grapes from. So let me couple of things with that. In this particular one, the Merlot is from a vineyard the same vineyard that we work with for our first tinto. It's called Equivine, and it is in Pennsylvania, about 70 miles north of here. That is where the Merlot is from. And then the Petit Verdot and the Cabernet Sauvignon are from the West Coast, from California. They are from the Molokume Valley, and it's kind of like sandy loam. So the grapes there develop that kind of powerful big tannin, while the Merlot here provides the structure. We normally, with this particular wine, what we're trying to achieve is we're trying to do this kind of garagiste project that I was talking about. That is it's an all-American red, right? That takes the best, I think, of what the best terroirs are in the United States and kind of puts them together. Kind of with the conviction that the whole is more than the sum of its parts, that it creates something really special in terms of craft. That's not to say that there's not like phenomenal, just only West Coast stuff, some phenomenal, only East Coast stuff, but there's something really beautiful that happens when you blend them, and when you blend them intentionally with the goal of creating a wine that has some of the structure of the West and the drinkability of the East, right?
Yeah, exactly. They bring, the East is going to bring the nuance and balance to the West, and the West is always going to bring kind of like this thickness and power of the beautiful sunshine that they have out there. Yes. So, another thing that you guys have here in your plate also is the quince jam. So quince is a very it's kind of like a pear-looking fruit, and it grows very, very well in dry places. It has kind of higher sugar levels. That's why they do a lot of like the quince jam or the quince paste, and it goes perfect with cheese. Manchego particularly goes amazing with. Another thing that now that we're gonna eat the cheese again with the quince jam, that you have to try it together, is that sorry. The almonds. The almonds. Yes. Is that the Manchego cheese is made from raw sheep's milk. So there's a lot of sheep cheeses in Spain.
Yeah, there's a lot of sheep in Spain.
They don't really have a lot of cow cheeses. I mean, they have some.
Yeah.
But they use a lot of sheep.
And even the beef consumption in Spain compared to other types of meat is lower. I mean, they have they do have some great steak, but it's
pigs are more common.
There's a lot of pork, which I suspect has some historical religious implications. but I'm sure
we're not gonna go there.
But we're not gonna go into that. And sheep, especially a lot of sheep, especially in the Basque country and in the north. Yeah.
Yeah. So please spread some of the quince jam on top of the cheese, because you do not want to miss out on that.
It's beautiful.
Salud.
So what do people think? What do people think about the wine? Any comments? Do people like it?
Yeah.
Let me see. We have any other questions about the any questions? We're happy to answer kind of any other questions about food and wine and this particular wine or any of the items here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we forgot to talk about. I mean, I should say that people, there's the world of this style of wine is a very interesting one. If you, I think we're the only ones doing it in this very particular way, as far as I know. But the world of like kind of garagiste style wines is a cool world in many ways, because it's kind of like the punk movement of winemaking. And we are big fans of the Talking Heads, and so we do have
yes.
and that is why
it has a little bit of punk.
It does have a little bit of punk for sure. But if you enter into that world and start finding some garagiste wines, you find stuff that's very, very, very interesting, and it kind of takes you farther along into the way of like staying away from the big brands that are doing everything exactly the same all the time, and getting to wines that are more interesting.
Yeah, and another thing, like wines, a lot of like the big brands, they have these kind of recipes, and they think that basically each wine has to take the same year by year. And I am a big fan of expressing each year on the wines itself.
Which is fascinating thing that you say that in light of 2018. So the Duende that you have, 2018, was the worst year on record on the East Coast for grapes.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, it was absolutely atrocious. We know friends in the industry that lost 80-90% of their crop. It was terrible. The Merlot that we got from the vineyard in Pennsylvania came, it had to be harvested before it rotted. So basically, what happens with the rains is that when you have a very rainy fall, what happens is that the grapes start, the plant absorbs the water and the berries start filling up. So before they are ripe, they start cracking and rotting. Mm-hmm. So what happens when there's a lot of fall rains is that you just get a lot of rot in the vineyard with no ripe fruit, right? And that is always the challenge in places like the east coast of the US, and then especially several places in France as well. They don't have this problem. In Spain is more of a Mediterranean climate. California doesn't have this problem either, but many other regions do. And so what happened with this particular one is that we harvested slightly early, so the fruit was slightly underripe, but it had no rot or very little. And then you blended with the East Coast, with the West Coast. I'm sorry, which the West Coast had a very different year from the one that we're having on the East, and that blend just creates something absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a great balance together.
Yeah. And obviously we have to, these we do in collaboration with our winemaker and our partner John Levenberg, who is who we work with throughout all of this stuff, and he is he's a West Coast winemaker that's been making wine on the East Coast, so it's kind of a great partnership in terms of creating this particular type of wine.
Exactly. Yeah, do you guys have any more questions about the wine itself, or?
Okay, you guys want to another, so somebody's ordering 20 cases, somebody wants another bottle, we'll be right out. We're gonna do the rounds right now. And you're in New York, don't worry about it. We'll come to your house too.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, phenomenal. So with these, I think we're going to wrap it up here. One thing I'd like to say is, remember the next episode is Swimming Upriver. That's next Saturday. We're going to be drinking our rosé, which is kind of the sweetheart for many people of the stuff that we do.
Yeah, it was the first wine we released, so it kind of a lot of people met us because of our first year rosé.
So it always holds a special place in our hearts. So we'll be drinking the rosé, and we will be eating two things: salmon.
Yeah, we're gonna be eating an Alaskan smoked white king salmon. Yeah. With an aioli, with a saffron aioli, and then we're gonna be eating these Portuguese smoked trout with a spelette pepper aioli. Which, now that you've been introduced to spelette,
yeah,
I think you might enjoy it.
And just so like those two things, the salmon and the trout, are one of my personal favorite things that we carry ourselves. It's just like, it's absolutely divine. So be sure to tune in for that. We are going to start kind of cleaning up and continue drinking our wine here. But we're not going to shut down the Zoom meeting until about 7 p.m. for another 20 minutes or something. So if anybody wants to just hang out and continue chatting,
party,
do it. We're big fans of after parties.
Yeah.
So
check your messages.
Check our messages.
What?
We're bored.
You're bored.
So, well,
so two things. Hold on. So first, it'll be how difficult would it be to replicate next year? That's in terms of wine. No 2 years are the same. What we can promise is that the spirit of Duende will continue being a spirit of truth, authenticity, balance, and power, always. But we'll see what this year brings. I mean, what we have already, from 2019, we have some beautiful, beautiful stuff. Very different than 2018. 2019 was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a great year.
Yeah. So you might see some slight changes, but in spirit is going to be a similar wine. A wine that is characterized by strong tannins, kind of like chewy tannins, a little bit of toastiness, and but also a high level of drinkability.
Drinkability is very important.
What else is on the board?
So yeah, I think we went through everything, but I'll go So we have the jamón serrano, manchego and quince jam, the gordal olives with pickled garlic, and roasted almonds with escalate pepper and
More of the olives. You do?
all right. Will it age well? Yes. Okay, so basically aging is the longer you have wine in barrels or in the bottle, it's gonna be losing fruit, gaining acidity, right?
They're gaining. Well, it's not really acidity. I mean, the acidity is sometimes more disclosed, but what happens is that it gains some of the notes of like leather and tobacco and wood, and loses some of the fruit. So basically, what happens with wine when it ages is that the contact of oxygen just makes it that it begins to, that all the brightness of the wine diminishes into kind of like rounder tones, right? So this one I actually think would age great.
Very well. Yeah.
If you get a few bottles, keep it in bottle for 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, I think it can in the bottle. It can be there for a while.
I can guarantee you that we'll
Another one with the
together. We'll definitely take some bottles to do it on like 20, 30 and see how it's faring. And I think it's gonna be great because it has the key thing, and maybe that's what you're talking about, is that for a wine to age well, it has to have structure, right? And what does that mean? That means that it has to have powerful, strong acidity, strong fruit, strong tannins. If it doesn't have that strength, then the wine just kind of
pants.
What?
Is this strong
But it's
pants?
definitely a wine with enough structure that it will age very well.
I think it'll age wonderful.
Perfect. Somebody asked what wine goes well with cricket tacos. All of them. Cricket tacos are amazing.
Tacos are amazing. Yes. Anything goes well with cricket tacos, especially tequila. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe mezcal a little bit more than wine. But anyways, cheers everybody.
Yeah, salud.
Salud.
For joining us.
Salud.
Cheers. Like always, it's a pleasure.
Salud.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll see you next week. Salud.
Enhorabuena.
Next week. You're not muted. Oh, you're not muted. anymore.
Hi, Kata.
Now you're unmuted. Too.
Bye, Laura.
Excellent,
guys.
Cheers, guys. Bill.
Sandra, Neil, hello.
Hi, Pam.
Bye, Bob and Marcy.
Hey, Joanne and Bill. Hi. How are you?
Where are we?
Hello.
Hey, cheers.
Julia, you raised 2 incredible sons.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Yeah.
Looks like Barbara Slocum there with the.
Joanne and Bill, at the
That's
bottom,
great, everybody, to see
you should see a microphone with a slash